Molly Bloom, you want to take it away?
Sure. So I guess this is supposed to be the basics of Excel, like Excel part 1, just importing data and basic filtering and sorting it and that kind of stuff. I think you guys probably know a lot of this. I'm still going to go through it. So I guess the first thing we're covering is importing data. So I have prepared for you a lovely text file that I'm going to find for you on the desktop. You guys can see my screen, right? Like all my junk?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Okay. So see, there's this file. It's a CSV file, enrollment by student demographic, that I downloaded from the ODE website. And you'll see that it's a CSV file. So you see there's a school district ID number, the school name, another ID number. This is the enrollment figure, and then a percentage. This is looking at the percentage of students who are low income. And so...
Wait, I have a question.
Yes.
What's Text Wrangler?
It's just a text editor. You could open it up too in like Notepad or TextEdit or WordPad.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So when it's like this, it's not really useful. So obviously you want to put it into Excel. So you're going to open up Excel and you make yourself a new spreadsheet, and you go to Data, Import. See, there's external data sources. And so there's different kinds of files that you can import, and we're importing a text file. So we find the text file. See, there it is. And so the thing with text files is that they come in different flavors, right? So sometimes there's a character, like a comma in this case, that's going to tell you, that's going to tell Excel where to break the data into columns. And in other cases, they're fixed width, which means they come in, like you can see the columns in the file. So I think usually most of the data that we end up dealing with is usually delimited somehow. It's usually like tab or comma delimited, which means the tab or commas separate them. So we select delimited, and you can say whether you want it to start importing the data. So I usually leave it at row 1 because that's where the headings are. You go to next. And then you need to tell it what character it is that's separating the columns. So for us, it's a comma. So you do next. And then this part's kind of important. So this column, see this district ID number? You'll see a lot of them start with zeros. And if you let Excel just import them as a general data type, it'll get rid of those zeros. And then it'll make it impossible for you to use those ID numbers later on. So it's important to go through and make sure that Excel imports it as text, and that'll preserve those zeros, that you don't lose them. So I usually go through all my columns and tell Excel what data type, just to make sure that it gets it right. Like, it'll guess, but it's better if you do it for them. So this is general. This is text because it's another ID number. This is the flag that says whether or not they are low income, and that's general. This is a blank column that we're eventually going to delete. This is fine. This is fine. So finish. And it asks where you want it to put the data, and so you usually just want it to put in the upper left-hand corner. So there you go. Yay, right? So
Magic.
Because of the way the file is set up, you have to do a little cleanup. You want to delete this column because there's nothing there. We know that all this data is from the 11-12 school year, so we move these headings up. We know this is the district name. This is the school IRN. The school IRN is just the ID number. And so that's how you import a CSV file. Jess, I had another example that showed how to import a text file if there was no delimiters, like no characters to break it up. Should I, do you guys want me to go into that now, or are you guys pretty comfortable with how to do that?
Why don't you go ahead and do it? Yeah, I'd like to see it.
Okay. So this whole thing was the importing the CSV file. But obviously not everything comes like that, all nice and pretty. So this is a table of school levy results. And if you look at it, you'll see that the only thing that separates the words is just a space. There's no comma, there's no tab, there's nothing to separate it. So what this is the district name followed by whether their school levy failed or passed. So we need to figure out like how to tell Excel where to break the columns, because if you tell Excel just to break on the spaces, like every word will be in a separate column, and that won't be really useful because some school districts have names that are more than one word and it'll just be a mess. So you want to insert a character. So I know just from looking at this list that all the district names end in the word either local or EV for exempted village. So I'm going to find all the words local and replace it with local and then a little pipe thing. Because then when we go into Excel, we can tell it to split the columns using that character, and it'll make neat columns for us. So we want to do the same for exempted village, for EV. So let's replace all. It's done. We save. And now when we go to data, text, school levy results, this is a delimited file because we made it a delimited file. We tell it what the character is and see how it makes it into a nice column with the district names in one column and the results in the other. So again, we know this is all just general formatted.
Can you scroll down so we can see it?
Oh, yeah.
Ooh.
So see.
Nice.
So see how if you had separated on the spaces, it would have gotten
worked.
funky. Yeah. Oops. Okay. So in some cases, you'll see that it didn't work so pretty, right? So in that kind of case, that's why it's kind of good after you import your data just to give a little scroll down and make sure that everything did work and tidy up anything that didn't work. So that's an important step. Does that all make sense?
Yeah, and you can see there in some of those, it's the EV, where you put the bar after the EV, right? And
Yeah.
some of the words just had EV in it, so that's where it got funky, but looks like there's few enough of them that you can just go through and manually fix those.
Yeah, so what I really should have done is notice that all the EV, that the exempted village that came at the end, it was a space EV, so I should have searched for space EV and then replaced that space EV with space EV and then a pipe. I didn't do that because I didn't think of that. But if I was thinking of it again, that's what I would do.
Yeah, or you could just go back and do it again since it only took you a minute.
Exactly. But I don't think you guys want to see that.
No.
Okay. So does that all make sense? You guys good?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And after the webinar, I'm going to send out the files if you guys want to try this at home.
Oh, you guys are going to have so much fun.
Molly has kindly provided them for us, and we'll put this video online, too, so you can follow along. How about them apples?
That's very exciting.
Those are good apples.
So just a couple, and you guys probably know this, but just sort of file management tips. You always want to keep your original data file like locked up and safe and clean. You know, it's okay to import it in, but don't, for example, when I instead of saving changes to that text file, I really should have made a copy of it and worked off the copy rather than off the original. Just kind of good practices. And it also makes sense, like say we're going to go back and we're going to work with this school district demographic file. Makes sense to call this like the original file, right? And then say you should make a copy of it, in the same spreadsheet. And call it, working, so that you have, a working tab and then the original tab, just in case. In the working tab, say, you messed something up, you want to go back, you accidentally deleted something, then you at least have the original that you already imported and cleaned up a little bit to go back and refer to. So, yeah. So the other stuff to talk about is sorting data. Do you guys want to hear about sorting data?
Yes.
Do you want to go into pivot tables? I don't know.
Please.
Okay. So we are in our working tab of data that you've carefully saved. Okay, so when you sort, you want to make sure to select all. in general, I mean, there might be times you don't want to, but in general, you want to, because if you don't, only, say, 2 columns of your data will get sorted. It'll get all out of alignment and wrong, and you'll be unhappy. So make sure to click Select All. Because I'm neurotic, I click it twice. And then you go to the Sort drop-down, and there are all kinds of ways that you can sort. You pick the column, so say you want to sort by district name. You can sort A to Z. You can sort by the enrollment figures, so you can, by numbers, so smallest to largest. If you wanted to see the smallest ones, so forth, all that stuff. Largest to smallest. Look, see, it changes. But again, it's just really important to hit Control A. So the other way that is, I think, kind of useful is, again, you hit Select All and you click Filter. And that makes each of your column headings its own little filterable thing. So what that allows you to do is, say you only want to see schools in Columbus. So you can filter so only Columbus City Schools comes up, for example. With this particular file, the thing to filter on is, see, there's this column that says Economic Disadvantage Flag. That's telling you that, so for example, if you look at these 2 Ohio Virtual Academy rows, it's telling you, yes, 67% are economically disadvantaged or, low income. No, 33% are not. So if you just want to see the flat rate of how many kids actually are, you can filter just to see all the yeses. And then you can sort in the filter and see, for example, which schools have the lowest percentages of poor kids, which, might be something useful for a story or something. And, besides just filtering, so you can filter, we filtered this economic disadvantage column based on text and sorting. You can also filter by size. So say you wanted to see all the schools that had less than 50% kids low income. Oops, that didn't work. Less than 0.5, right? Less than 5? Oh, that did work, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Sorry. So this, pulls up only the schools that have less than 5%. You could do more than whatever, you can play around for whatever, question you're trying to answer with your data. So I think that's filtering. Mm-hmm. Are there other questions people have? I mean, okay. Moving on.
I noticed that some of your numbers, like the 95%, got goofy. What would you do to fix those so that you could analyze it better?
So the reason the 95% numbers are goofy is because if there's more than 95% low income, there's this, they insert a character greater than 95%, and when that gets imported, it gets messed up. So you kind of have like one of those data decisions to make. You can, search for those characters and decide, I'm just going to report these all at 95% and delete them, for example. You could decide that I'm going to report these all at 100% since it's greater than 95%. But you would do a find and replace to fix that. But that's sort of one of those like decisions that you'd have to make as you go through the data. So it's filtering. So formatting. We talked a little about formatting. So we talked about why it's important to leave these kinds of ID numbers that I imagine you guys have too in all kinds of other circumstances, like IDing wells or zip codes or parcels of land or whatever, where you want to make sure to format them as text so that you don't lose those leading zeros, and so that Excel doesn't decide to convert them into some other format. Percent. So this column now is formatted as percentages. So it
somebody's getting or we're getting some ambient noise. Could somebody put your phone on mute? Thanks.
So yeah, this is formatted as percentages. Excel will format stuff for you in all kinds of different ways. If you say that you decided that was actually a currency, oops, I guess it won't do it for that. But if these were actually currency figures, see dollar amounts, you can change how many, zeros are displayed. So there's that. Pivot, do we have time to talk about pivot tables?
Could you guys mute your phones when you're not talking?
Hey, I'm trying to. I'm pressing the wrong button.
Okay. I thought it sounded like Tim Lambert. I didn't want to call you out, though.
He's talking. So they don't hear you.
Okay, never mind. Hopefully it won't get bad again.
Tell him to be quiet.
All right, sorry, Molly. Sorry to interrupt.
So,
carry on.
So I think we're supposed to end at 1:30. So I can talk about pivot tables, or if you guys have questions, we can do that. What's the plan?
Do you want to show pivot tables real quick? And I don't know, since we started a little late, do you guys mind if we go like 5 minutes over?
I'm okay with that.
Or what would you guys prefer? Sammy and Molly, I know I just asked you to mute your mic.
I'd love to see pivot tables.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, let's do them. Everybody loves pivot tables.
Let's do pivot tables. So pivot tables are really useful for sort of summarizing your data and kind of boiling it down in different ways. So they're really useful. So this here is a spreadsheet of school report card information for last year for Ohio. And so say we want to know sort of how many A+ rated districts are in each county. So we could go through and count by hand, which would be kind of a pain, or we could do a pivot table. So you want to select your data, and then you go to Data, Analysis, and then Insert Pivot Table. You can do an automatic pivot table where it'll kind of guess what it thinks you want, or you can just do it manually. It doesn't make a big difference. You can put it in, the same worksheet or a new worksheet. I usually put it in a new worksheet just to keep all my analysis separate. So, okay. And then, so pivot tables, there's obviously, as you can see, there's a row area and a column area. And you just drag the fields you want into those areas. So row labels, we want to break it down by county. And in the column area, we want to know the school's ratings. So we put rating and rating. And so you'll see it counts up for us how many A+, A, B, C, D, F. I guess you guys can't see when I point at my screen. But schools there are in each county. So that sort of does it for us so that we don't have to go through and do it ourselves. So maybe just having this list like itself isn't so useful. Maybe you want to work with it itself. So you might want to take your pivot table and copy it to a new tab. So we have it kind of all pretty and ready for us to work with. And then we could...
And I noticed you just pasted values. Why did you do that?
Because I just wanted the clean copy of the raw data. I didn't want it to pull in like the functional nature of the pivot table.
Mm-hmm. Interesting.
You asked such good questions, Jessica. So again, we can then take this and we can, use our filter, right, to sort, these are the districts with the greatest number of A+ schools. There's all kinds of other stuff we could do. We could look at the percentage of, of all schools in a county that are rated A+. by putting a formula in this last column and then filling down and then filtering and sorting. But I think that Kyle's doing that next week.
Yes.
So that's
Good
one thing.
Teaser for next week.
Yeah, the teaser. But there's other stuff you can do with pivot tables too. So this is just in this table, we're just telling it to count how many schools in each rating there are for each county. But say we wanted to know, say the average number. Oops, that doesn't work with that field, does it now? Average enrollment is what we want to look at. So say we want to know the average enrollment for each county by district, like the average enrollment for all districts in Cuyahoga County, Adams County, and so on. So then we drag those other columns that we don't need out, and we would drag in the enrollment field. But you see, obviously there aren't just 2 kids enrolled in this county and 9, and that's because we've set it to tell us to count. What we actually want is, for example, we can look at the average, right? So this would be the average enrollment by district for that county, which is sort of interesting, maybe not really useful. Maybe what
does that 2 mean, though? What was that number?
That was the count of districts. Like that was how many districts there were in each county.
Oh, okay.
Which is, I don't know, maybe that's useful.
Kind of how many pieces of information it was pulling in instead of the actual information. Right.
Yeah. Sorry, that was a better explanation. So count, average. Yeah. So maybe you want to know how many kids there are? You can, so it takes all the data for Adams County and summarizes it by summing for the field that we've selected, which is enrollment. So that would tell you how many kids there are enrolled in schools in each county. So, yeah. I mean, again, it's good practice to go back and label your tabs so that you know what this is. So we might call this like enrollment by county, like just to keep track of things.
Awesome, thanks.
You're welcome.
Does anyone have any questions about pivot tables? Or any fun stories about your adventures with pivot tables?
I can't wait to get my own fun stories about adventures with pivot tables.